Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again to the CBT podcast. This is episode 5, our first episode since the unfortunate events that happened in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Ethan, Rod, thank you for once again rejoining the podcast. And Rod, as the world's biggest Celtic hater, I will let you take front and center to talk about Game 6.
Okay, we're going to do this quick and easy like a Band-Aid. I was right. There was no Game 7 required, especially no Celtic victory in the finals. I said the Warriors would handle this with relative ease, and I think that stood true. Games 1 through 3 were rough. Celtics came out. They showed a lot of heart, a lot of energy. Al Horford, Derek White having some career nights. But championship experience, all-time Hall of Fame greatness prevailed, and the Celtics just could not contain Steph Curry throughout the series. And Andrew Wiggins had some huge performances, and this came down to the Warriors stars, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, completely outperforming the Celtics star duo of Tatum and Brown. And I'm sure y'all have a lot more to say about that than I do.
Yeah, I know for one, I predicted a legacy game for Jason Tatum in games 4, 5, and 6.
He
Obviously,
sure had
it was
one in
very
6.
disappointing.
It impacted his legacy.
He had a game Celtics fans will be talking about for a long time in Game 6. 13 points as the best player on a finals team in an elimination game is unforgivable, obviously. I mean, you're a guy who was first team All-NBA throughout the season, and then he went Casper and ghosted the NBA Finals. I mean, Jason Tatum is my favorite player in the league, obviously, as a Celtics fan, but I am disappointed in the guy. I mean, he may only be 24 years old, but you can't have a performance like that in the finals. That's all I have to say.
A whopping 13 points. But as a Celtics fan that has been to the conference finals and gotten heartbroken past 5 years, all I can say is thank you for finally breaking the barrier. Finally, we broke it and we made the finals. We made it through Kevin Durant. We made it through Giannis. We made it through Jimmy. And at the end of the day, we came out of the East. Jason Tatum, on the other hand, has some digging deep to do. He has to go in within himself, text Kobe, do what he needs to do. He needs to just go back to the gym and shoot over and over.
I will say this. I said this a little bit in the last episode. As the number one Celtics hater, I have to give credit where credit is due. I had them losing in round 1. When they swept the Nets, I had them losing in round 2 to the Bucks. When they beat the Bucks, I had them losing in the conference finals to the Heat. And there is no shame in losing to the Warriors dynasty. Mm-hmm. This is a huge positive for the Celtics. They have a very young star duo. As much as it pains me to say, I do think they will be back. But I think, do we want to talk about the Warriors, what this means for them moving forward?
I just have a little something to say about what you were just saying, just real quick. So you said there is no shame in losing to the Warriors dynasty in the finals. That is true, but there is shame in the style that they lost to the Warriors dynasty in the finals. I am going to be the first to say it. Every night before I go to bed, as I lay my head on the pillow, there's one thought that runs through my head. What if they had closed out Game 4 in the Garden? They were up 5 with just a few minutes left. They blow the next game, and then blow the next game. So I would say that there is, in fact, shame in this finals loss. It started out well. Sure, they had a fearsome, great all-time opponent, but still, you cannot go out that sad. And I'm saying this as a Celtics fan. And also, you say, yeah, they'll be back. They'll be back. I'm not so sure they will be back. Sports, just in general, it's way too hard to predict a team will be back to the finals. I mean, look at Oklahoma City. It's the example everyone points to. Did they ever make it back? No. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not gonna say it's a sure thing that they will be back in the NBA Finals one day. So the Warriors, let's talk about what their ideal offseason is. Rod, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll go first. Obviously, a championship is huge for them, like it would be for any team, but missing the last, what's it been, 2 years? Just missing the finals in general. Obviously, Clay being out, Steph was out 1 year when they still had D'Angelo Russell. That feels like ages ago. But they reformed their team perfectly. They put it all together. And going into the offseason, obviously, Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole are up for contract extensions. They're still on contract for 1 year, but they are eligible to be extended. I think they both proved their worth. I think Wiggins, more so than Poole, is deserving of, I don't know what he's eligible for. I think it's an all-NBA team that gets you eligible for a really big contract. He was an all-star starter, controversially, but he definitely proved that he can hang with anybody. He can have huge games. So I would not be opposed to giving him even more than he's making now, which is upwards of $25 million a season. Jordan Poole, it's a little different. I could hear the argument that maybe you shouldn't give him $25 million a year, especially when you still have Steph Curry. But I see a vision for the Warriors, which could be unlike anything we've ever seen from a dynasty in really sports history, where you have the established Hall of Famers, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, that put in the legwork to get the team to where it is. But you kind of have them fading away in a sense. We saw it a little bit with Klay this series, Draymond, obviously, where they kind of took a back seat at times to guys like Wiggins, guys like Jordan Poole, obviously. So I think we could see a situation where obviously these veterans still have a big voice, still play big minutes, but we see the Warriors have one of the best young cores in the league, and few of them even played in the finals. Obviously, James Wiseman didn't play at all. Kuminga played garbage time. Moses Moody played garbage time. These are guys who rebuilding teams would kill for, and they're not even getting PT right now. So I think there's a path for the Warriors to let their young guys kind of carry a lot of the load moving forward. And I think that increases their championship window to a lot more than some people would think.
Yeah, just to touch on what you said about we haven't ever really seen a sports team go from one dynasty to another right away. I think we have seen it back in the 80s and 90s from another San Francisco team when the 49ers went from Joe Montana to Steve Young and continued that success. But that's a little bit beyond the point. I do want to talk about the Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole discussion. I think Andrew Wiggins is far more deserving of a contract from Golden State than Jordan Poole. I mean, he locked down Jason Tatum, outplayed him in the finals. I wouldn't have guessed that would have happened. And I'm going to be the leader of this movement for years to come. Jordan Poole is a fraud. If Jordan Poole was drafted to any other of the 29 franchises in the NBA, he wouldn't see anywhere near the same amount of success that he has in Golden State. He's in the perfect system for his play style. He's playing behind Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Like, if Steph Curry and Jordan Poole are on the floor together, who's the defense going to be focusing on? So, me personally, I would not give Jordan Poole a big contract. One, because I'm a Jordan Poole hater, and two, because I think he's just a player in Golden State's flawless offensive system. Ethan, anything from you about the Warriors?
Nah, I mean, I'll admit, I thought Poole was more deserving of a contract than Andrew Wiggins, but you guys have swayed me. I think that Andrew Wiggins, just what he did to Jason Tatum, how he locked him up, not even Jason, though, just like, Jalen at times, Smart at times.
Switching on
like,
to big men.
Yeah, he was everywhere. The rebounds, you would think having Robert Williams III, we would be grabbing all these rebounds. But Andrew Wiggins was there every time. So
One man can only do so much.
Yeah.
If it weren't for Steph never having a finals MVP, I think Andrew Wiggins would have gotten it.
Oh, no doubt. Andrew Wiggins was definitely the second best player throughout the finals.
Yeah. Now, one thing I do think that is hurting the Warriors, and this may get talked about more, but it's Draymond's contract. I think Draymond's contract is going to start hurting the Warriors a lot because they are paying him a lot of money because he's around the same age as Curry and Clay.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas Curry has continued his, his Hall of Fame stardomness in a way, that's even a word. Clay, I mean, you got to give Clay a little bit of slack because he was, injured. But
crippled.
Draymond has taken the cliff. Draymond went from scoring, being that threat. He used to be able to hit threes good. He was respectable.
Yeah. Oh, you had to guard him.
Definitely.
But now it's like I wouldn't say a Ben Simmons type of offensive player. But he's real close to it. That's what I mean. Like he's really close to just becoming a Ben Simmons type of player.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that would help them, but when you have, the Hall of Fame point guard of Curry, you don't really need another facilitator, It's nice to have, but I feel like, especially if Wiggins can bring the ball up at times, you got Clay, not Clay. You got Poole coming off the bench. I think Draymond's contract is going to end up hurting the Warriors. And I think they have a really tough decision to do with that. Maybe they stay with him due to loyalty and what he's brought to their team. But I think if they want to keep Poole and Wiggins, they're going to have to find some way to do something with Draymond.
I agree with you. I think you made a lot of good points. I would agree with the fact that Draymond on any other of the 29 teams in the league is a lot worse than he is on the Warriors. I think the current Warriors team might be one of the only teams in NBA history where Draymond Green fits perfectly. You said they didn't really need another facilitator. I agree. I think if they had to, Curry could just bring the ball up every time, but it helps because of the chemistry between Draymond and Steph. Steph is incredibly dangerous on the ball, but off the ball, especially coming around screens and handoff actions, he's basically unguardable. So I do agree that, he is a little bit overpaid as far as relative production, but when you talk about the chemistry and how he fits with the Warriors, it's not like he's making 30 million. I think it's 20 something. I think it's in the low 20s. So it may, it's an overpay as far as what he gives you numbers wise, but I think he's a Hall of Famer. And in the big moments we saw in game 6, I mean, he hit 2 threes, they were big shots. He played great defense the whole series, even if he was hacking more than a few times, but
should have been thrown out.
But I think he fits with the Warriors perfectly. And as long as him and Steph are on the court together, defenses will have nightmares for years to come.
I know I'll have nightmares.
Is that it for the Warriors outlook?
Yeah, I think so. So do we want to move on to the Celtics?
Yep. Y'all can start first.
All right, let's talk about the Celtics dream offseason. So there was obviously one glaring issue that I talked about for the Celtics throughout really the entire playoffs, but it especially came to light in these NBA finals. And what is that problem?
Turnovers.
So looking at the free agent market, of course, there's, the big name splashy guys like Kyrie is probably going to opt out of his. Bradley Beal likely will opt out as well. So sure, the Celtics could go for a guy like that. If they really want star power, it would take a lot of moving around, to fit them in cap-wise. But I think the one player who would be perfect for Boston entering the next season, a man who would solve many of the turnover problems that they have been encountered. Last season, he set the single-season NBA record for assist to turnover ratio with a number that I believe was 7.1. Tyus Jones, who currently is a Memphis Grizzly, will be an unrestricted free agent this offseason. And I think if the Celtics throw a number around $15 million a year over 3-4 years at him, he would be just perfect in my eyes. Play him at the 1, Smart at the 2, JB 3, Tatum 4, and Rob at the 5. you can slide an aging Al Horford to the bench, and then you'll still have the support of guys like Tyson, Grant Williams coming off the bench as well. So that is the big thing I want to see from the Celtics. And they can maybe even pick up a guy like Taurean Prince, who, he's not going to do much, but throughout the regular season, you need guys, veteran guys like him who can come off the bench and give you points now and again. And he's a really solid defender as well. So Tyus Jones and Taurean Prince, I know it's not asking for a whole lot, but that's what I'm asking for from the Celtics over these next few months.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, it's not hard to see. The Celtics don't have a true point guard. They have guys trying to make plays that really shouldn't. I mean, how many times a game did we see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, when the offense wasn't going anywhere, just put their head down and drive to the rim and make a boneheaded play, whether it was dribbling off their foot, throwing their hands up, getting stripped, errant pass, air ball, and all that stems from not having a floor general who puts guys in the right position. Marcus Smart tries, I'll give him that, but he's just not a natural point guard. He's not a great facilitator. And a guy like Tyus Jones, who just broke the record for assist to turnover ratio, a record previously held by Tyus Jones the previous season. I mean, you'd think there wouldn't be a better fit for a team who struggles with turnovers to bring in the all-time leader in assist to turnover ratio. Like you said, he wouldn't command anywhere near a max contract, 20 mil a year. I think 15 mil might even be a little generous. I think 12 to 13 could possibly get him in, depending on the market. And I've said before, especially when the Celtics were below 500, I said, oh man, it's only going to get worse. Their offseason, they don't have a lot of options to go, but they've proven me wrong. I have a lot more faith in Tatum and Brown playing together. Robert Williams came out of nowhere. He kind of has that center position locked down. And I think all they need really is a point guard. Obviously, I think Taurean Prince is a good name to mention as just a spot up shooter who could, they definitely need some shooting. But Ethan, what is your suggestion for the Celtics offseason?
It's about to get crazy. I'm going to say this.
I am going to give you a name you would not think about.
Makes me sick.
It makes me sick too.
Oh, I think I have a guess.
You don't.
When Jason Tatum was drafted, Rod, there was a comparison to another player in the draft where people thought for a little bit that he was better than him.
They thought for almost a whole season, actually.
Yes. And I will give you a hint. He played for the rival of the Celtics. Let me give you the name of
No way. It's not who I'm thinking, is it?
It is.
Say it out loud so the world can hear you.
Markelle Fultz.
No.
Wait.
No.
A point guard who played for the Celtics
rivals? No.
Celtics rivals are the Lakers.
And I'm not talking about a point guard.
They did draft a point guard at number 2 in that draft.
But I'm not
Lonzo
talking
Ball.
about a point guard.
Or no, was Lonzo? I don't know. Lonzo was the year prior. He was taken late. He plays for the Wizards.
Lonzo was on the team. No,
yeah,
sorry, Lonzo was drafted that year.
Draft class. Was he?
Yes.
Okay.
Lonzo, Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually was. Oh wow.
And who else did the Lakers?
Kuzma.
What?
No. So the Wizards, I saw, have been shopping Kyle Kuzma. And the Celtics have had an issue with bench scoring. My proposal is we ship out the bad man Aaron Nesmith. We gift them Peyton Pritchard, and we throw in a second round pick some year, and we get Kyle Kuzma for our scoring off the bench. And that way, with the money that we ship off with Aaron and Peyton Pritchard, we can fit the rest of Kyle Kuzma's 13 mil a year, team-friendly contract, 13 mil a year for the next 2 years. We can fit the rest of his money into a TPE, and so we still have enough space to trade. Not trade, but to get like Tyus Jones, for example. we still have enough space to be able to get another player in the free market, like in the open market. That is my proposal. Kyle
Well,
Kuzma as our scorer off the bench.
in
Something
all
that we
this,
have needed. A forward that can score.
in all the Celtics games that I've watched over the years, there's two things that frustrate me. Obviously, one of them being turnovers, and the other is when Jalen or Jason or Marcus, they throw up these crazy shots that have no chance of going in, and they're just chucking, and you're like, why is he doing this? Kyle
And you
Kuzma
want
being
another
added
one.
to the team makes me
You-
sick to my stomach because it adds another guy who's going to go out there and chuck and chuck and chuck. And I don't think he has any defensive upside. Sure, he'd give us scoring off the bench, but I don't want him off the bench. There are so many other names around the NBA that I would go to far before Kyle Kuzma. Kyle will be at the bottom of the list for me.
No.
Okay, 1 second. Let's pretend for even a second that this trade would exist in the realm of reality. You realize that Kuzma just had possibly the best season of his career. He is the Wizards' second best player, possibly even their best player if Bradley Beal leaves. And you think that
Porzingis.
Tingus Pingus. But you think that a second round pick, PP, and Aaron Nesmith would bring in the Wizards' second or third best player?
You've seen some crazy things happen in trades.
I did see Jeremy Grant get traded for a 2025 first rounder.
So
That's more
yesterday.
valuable than that entire package Ethan just said.
Hey,
still,
Nesmith did show flashes throughout the Miami series of some competency, and Pritchard's a walking bucket, not a defensive liability whatsoever. That would be a trade similar for the Celtics if by some chance it did go through. It would be similar to when the Mavericks gave up salary filler and a pick for Christian Wood, but instead of
That's
getting
why it's
Christian
like-
Wood, they'd be getting Kyle Kuzma.
that's why I think it would work. And if you think about it, Kyle Kuzma would not be bad, but I understand what JJ
He
said.
would
because
provide rebounding. That would help. But
not even
Give me a
rebounding, just
37-year-old Al Horford.
oh well, that didn't work
that
too well.
sixth man off the bench. Kyle Kuzma would be our factor that we need, because what was another issue? Grant Williams disappeared.
They did not
Grant
have any bench
Williams-
scoring. That's true.
Grant Williams, after the Bucks series, disappeared. He was a non-factor.
Yeah, he was a
Derek
ghost.
White can only do so much for so long.
He tried.
He tried.
He put in a valiant effort.
Yeah. Peyton Pritchard was nowhere to be found.
Oh,
He hit like 1 or 2 threes in the finals. If
Game
he-
one.
time.
Game one, he was good.
So that's what I'm saying. We need some type of forward scoring. And
Well,
I believe
I think you have it on the team. If you get a guy like Tyus Jones, you just move Tatum down one slot, you move Brown down one slot, and there's your forward scoring. And then it does improve
but
the bench
Tyus
because
Jones
Al
is
Horford comes
6
off the
feet
bench.
tall.
Yes.
You lose height when you add Tyus Jones.
But you
That's my
sure you
problem.
sacrifice the defense a little bit, but when you have the league's best defense by a considerable margin, you can afford to let that slip a little bit.
And he's no slouch defensively. He's a high IQ player.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah,
he's got
so was Derek White, and look what he was doing.
Derek White's a good defender as well.
I'm not talking about defensively. I'm talking about passing wise.
Yeah, well, Derek
Well,
White
he's not a
didn't
true
have the
point guard
best.
either.
Yeah, Derek White didn't have the best assist to turnover ratio in history, did he?
He's also playing. What team was he playing on again? Memphis?
Memphis, the
Oh,
second
Tyus
seed in
Jones,
the
yeah.
West.
Coming off the bench? Or starting?
You think he was starting
You-
over John Morant?
I mean, come on.
No, I don't know if they run a 2. My bad.
No, he was no.
My
Oh,
bad.
it was an honest question. No, he
So
wasn't.
they start him over Desmond?
You know, he was playing
My
like
bad.
22, 23 minutes a game.
He was
Probably play
contributing.
around similar for the Boston. I'd say maybe 28 minutes a game.
Yeah,
But it changed life for the
it would change the
Celtics,
whole offensive dynamic.
which they desperately need.
And that would also happen if we had Kyle Kuzma.
No,
it would change
not,
it all right.
It would not
for the better.
change, and it would not change to the extent that it would if we had Tyus Jones. Is there anything else we want to talk about the Celtics offseason
Oh, you
before
got
moving
another
on?
crazy theories.
Yeah,
That's
Are
what
they gonna?
all I'm saying. We need bench scoring, and
I hope they get
Torian Prince
Kuzma.
or
I
PJ
hope.
Tucker is not gonna do it for us. I'm sorry.
Next thing you know, Sabonis is going to be headed to Boston, according to Ethan, for scoring off the bench.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
What is that
Another
remarkable?
player that I would love to see the Celtics try and get if they cannot give up, but not give up too much. Malcolm. Malcolm would
They'd
be
have to
my
give
number
up.
one priority. I know, but Malcolm Brogdon is my number one priority for the Celtics.
At least that would help the Celtics.
Yeah.
It's a positive trade for once.
I would rather make the Celtics make a move for one of Brogdon's Indiana teammates and Buddy Hield before going for Kyle Kuzma, because at least they could get Buddy Hield
That's
for like
fair.
a half-eaten ham sandwich or something.
That's fair. That is completely fair. But I would like to see their number one priority call the Pacers and ask about Malcolm Brogdon. That's all I'm saying.
I would call San Antonio about DeJounte Murray before I do that. And that's a great segue into the DeJounte Murray trade rumors. He has been linked to Atlanta, which makes me very upset because as Rod is the number one Celtics hater, I'm the number one Atlanta Hawks hater.
It's not really the Hawks. It's more.
It's just trade.
Yeah.
But so the rumors have been a Drew Holiday like package. So what I've been hearing is John Collins and 3 firsts, along with, I'm sure, little things here and there. If I'm San Antonio, this is Pop's last hurrah. If DeJounte goes, he might not even coach this season, which he might not do regardless. But John Collins, I think, is incredibly average, is on a bad contract. And DeJounte Murray, I've been leading the DeJounte Murray parade all season. I think DeJounte Murray is super good. Like, perfect. He's a big point guard. He's a triple-double machine. He can play make. He's a great defender. He led the NBA in steals per game this year, I think.
Yep.
He would be perfect for Atlanta next to Trae Young. Rod, Ethan, do you guys think this trade has any actual weight behind it, or they're just rumors?
Well, we know the influence Pop has in the front office. I think he would have a say in these talks. And if this was his idea, I think he has gone senile. I think someone should check in on him. I was trying to put myself in the shoes of a man who would want John Collins in general. That. I was trying to think who would want a guy who in his 2 playoff appearances has averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds. I did go back and look on 3 and 4 seasons ago from John Collins, and he was a 20-point scorer and a 10 rebound a game type guy. That's very impressive. That's when I actually thought he used to have some potential. Then he fell off a cliff and got a massive extension. So that's one thing. But to also, in order to acquire that, to think for 1 second you'd give up your franchise. DeJounte Murray is the Spurs. He is quite literally the only all-star caliber player on, near, around the Spurs roster. To give him up for a guy who
he's above average at best.
He's mediocre, honestly, for that contract, especially.
John Middens.
And then, I mean, you already said everything that needs to be said about DeJounte. He's even better than that. I think he's a top 10 point guard in the league, and he's 25 years old. I hope these are rumors. There will be a lot of toasters and San Antonio bathtubs if this trade were to go through.
DeJounte deserves better than Atlanta as well, I will say.
I hope they're not true.
I sure do hope.
That is like their cornerstone. That's the Spurs' way out, or at least being relevant, because without him, they would not be any kind of relevant like they are now. So I just hope it's not true.
I mean, Smart, Neesmith, Pritchard, and 3 firsts. Who says no? But moving on, Jeremy Grant got moved to Portland as well yesterday for a 2025 first-round pick via Milwaukee, which will probably be the 27th pick in the 2025 NBA draft. So obviously, Portland really didn't give up hardly anything for Mr. Grant, who I think is a very good player. He can defend, he can shoot, he can even handle the ball if need be. So the way it's looking, I mean, this might we really need to talk about Portland making the play-in now, because this is just monumental.
This is big. This is big.
This is big time.
I never really looked at Jeremy Grant as a player who sometimes, when a guy gets traded to a team, you think, oh, he's going to, I thought that about Victor Oladipo when he got traded to the Pacers. I thought about it with Kevin Porter when he got moved to the Rockets, more minutes and, means more points, all that. I didn't see that coming with Jeremy Grant. Because if you'll remember with the Thunder in Westbrook's last year, he actually played around the same minutes he played with the Pistons last 2 seasons, but he was a completely different player, so he made that big jump. Obviously, we all know he's a 20-point scorer now. He did pick up some bad habits playing for the Pistons for 2 years,
As anyone would.
Yeah, it's similar to Christian Wood with the Rockets, actually. Very similar. But this is huge for the Blazers. They needed to give Dame anybody to help out on offense. And I was really surprised. I saw so many reports about, the Heat being interested, the Lakers being interested, the Hawks being interested. And to get him for, you already said, a pick 2 years from now that won't even be in the top 25, that's an incredible move. A rare W, some would say, for the Blazers front office.
My only concern for the Trailblazers is actually Dame. How he's going to come back off of this injury. Yes. How he's going to come off of this injury is my only concern for the Trailblazers. I think they're trying to build around Dame right now, which is obviously the smartest idea because you want him to be happy. You want him to stay and not want to ask for a trade. But last time we saw Dame,
it was stinky.
Yeah, he wasn't that good.
Mm-mm.
And it wasn't only until he came out with the whole thing about that he's injured is when everyone started cutting him some slack. But even in the beginning of the season, he just wasn't good. So I think that this year is we're really gonna see where Dame is at once he comes back. Because if he's gonna be 100% healthy, if he's the same Dame, then I think the Trailblazers should be fine. But also he's going to have to pick up more of a facilitating role instead of a scoring role now that he has Jeremy Grant with him. So
I agree with that. I think the story with that, how it went, is obviously it was an abdominal injury. And I believe he suffered it in the playoffs or sometime during the offseason. And he put off having surgery. So I believe he was playing with it the entire season, but he only revealed it that he was injured a little after, into the season. Then once he realized they had no shot of making the playoffs, he just sat out and got surgery. I agree that this is kind of different. He's going to have to kind of switch his role up a bit. But I don't think, at least in my memory, maybe you could say with CJ McCollum and Norman Powell, but now he has Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant, who are both capable of putting the ball on the floor, scoring a lot of points. I think they still have Nurkic. He may be a free. I'm not even sure, but I think they still have Nurkic.
I think he's still there.
So, and he's all reliable from SpongeBob.
What he's gonna give you.
Yeah, it's not bad. So, I think not a high ceiling, but I think we definitely will see the Blazers back and play in contention. I think that's fair.
Ethan, you were questioning Damian Lillard's ability to come back. He's lower 30s now. His team's terrible. He's coming off an injury. He was bad before his injury. But I seem to remember a couple of years ago, there was another point guard who was in his low 30s on a team who was struggling. He was doing poorly at the beginning of the year, broke his hand, and then sat out the rest of the year. The team kind of reset. He came back, and he won Finals MVP this year. And that man is Steph Curry. And I know it's a little bit unfair to compare Damian Lillard to the most talented point guard of all time. But I'm saying, with a guy like Dame, who's shown to us that he's great, in my opinion, played the greatest playoff game we've ever seen and lost. I fully trust Dame to come back, and he's going to, he'll score 27, 28, low 40s from the field and 38% from three.
You are trying to argue with me over if not the greatest, the second greatest point guard of all time.
No, just the situation that he'll come back similarly.
Yeah,
hey,
I'm comparing the situations. I'm not saying Dame is Steph Curry because Dame is not Steph Curry. Sure, there's similarities in their play styles, but I'm just saying it's not out of the question that he'll come back and be the old Dame because we've seen Steph come back and win the finals. So the last big NBA storyline that I want to cover today is the era in Brooklyn that a Boston Celtics team led by Jason Tatum ended this season with the sweep in the first round. And that is the Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving era in Brooklyn. It has been made pretty evident that Brooklyn and Kyrie are kind of having a mutual breakup as we speak. And he's given 6 teams that he would like to work with. Included are Philly, the Knicks, Miami, just to name a few. The Lakers are a big one that a lot of people seem to think is going to happen. So Kyrie likely is on his way out of Brooklyn. And if he's on his way out, you got to question if Kevin, Mr. Durant, would like to stay. So Ethan, do you have anywhere that you think Kyrie is going, if going anywhere? Is there any teams you see him?
I think the Lakers. I think the Lakers are probably going to end up getting Kyrie. I think that's the only place that really makes sense for him. I think at this point in his career, he kind of just wants chips. I don't think he's looking for anything else. And if you go to the Lakers, you already have success playing like with LeBron. Now, that 30 mil pay cut that he's going to have to take is a really big pay cut. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you're competing for a chip like that, I think it's 100% worth it for where he's like what he's been through already in his career. So that's my idea.
I actually disagree a little bit. I think, first of all, I overall think the situation speaks to Kyrie being a cancer to whatever team he's on. He was, it was revealed he was the reason that James Harden left because of his vaccine status and missing too many games. So he pushed James Harden out the door, and now he is leaving KD stranded over disputes with the team. So we saw him leave a great situation with the Cavaliers. We saw him leave a pretty good situation with the Celtics. And now he is leaving again a team that he went to. He called it home. He said he wanted to retire
here. He chose it.
Yep. He brought KD with him. And yet again, he just proves that he's not a leader. He doesn't belong at the top of any team trying to win a championship. And I actually think that's why he won't go to a team like the Lakers, or I saw the Clippers on his list, or the Heat, or any type of culture that's trying to win, because I don't think he can handle that pressure. He's shown time and time again that he runs when things get hard. So I think he would prefer a situation where he can just play his game, his exciting style of basketball with low expectations. And I think that's the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
He stays in New York. The keys to the team are handed to him. His only competition for shots would be RJ Barrett, which I think he'd get along with pretty well. But I don't see really a world where he reunites with LeBron. He was the reason, LeBron being the reason Kyrie left Cleveland in the first place. I don't see a team like the Heat wanting Kyrie in their locker room. I just think Kyrie's experiment, if you want to call it that, as a leader, a guy who's trying to lead teams to championships, I think it's failed. I think he's realized that, and I think he just wants to relax and play basketball without any championship aspirations.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I also think he's going to, I guess, not really go to New York, but stay in New York and join the Knicks. Obviously, in the past, when he originally left Cleveland, he expressed his desire to have his own team. And sure, he sort of had that in Boston, but it wasn't very long. I mean, that was obviously a failure. He got hurt. The Knicks may be his opportunity to finally have his own team. And selfishly, as a basketball fan, Although obviously being a Celtics fan, I don't like Kyrie. Kyrie is undoubtedly one of the most fun players in the NBA to watch play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was in Brooklyn and Kevin Durant was hurt, he was like just going off. It was so much fun to watch. So selfishly, I would quite like for Kyrie to go to the Knicks. One, because then he doesn't help another Eastern Conference team become a contender. But two, because it would just be prime entertainment to see Kyrie making dudes do all kinds of jigs and dances, MSG 41 times a year, maybe even lead them back to the playoffs. And that would obviously be electric. As much as I hate the Knicks, they have great fans, passionate, and you'll know they're there. But if Kyrie does leave, you have to think that Mr. Durant will likely follow. It hasn't been confirmed, excuse me, that he will ask for a trade upon Kyrie's departure, although things are trending into that direction. I know things like this are hard to predict because we have no idea what team's going to try and throw a package together for KD. I mean, do you guys have any idea where he may end up? Any ideas even?
I'll go first. I may be in the minority here, but I think Kevin Durant is pretty comfortable where he's at. If you've noticed the last few years, you haven't really heard a lot from him as far as complaints go. Obviously, this past season, he had to deal with a lot with the James Harden drama and the Kyrie vaccination drama. But I think Kevin Durant is at a comfortable spot in his career. You know, he won his rings. If it wasn't for him wearing a size 50 shoe, he probably would have played and possibly won another finals last year. I think he's comfortable. Obviously, we know wherever Kyrie goes, the Nets are going to get some pieces back. I think in his heart, he wants to stay with the Nets. I think he feels welcomed. I think he knows it's his team. And I think if they, depending on what they get back, they'll still be a playoff contender. You know, whether or not they do that with Steve Nash as the coach, I think is up in the air. But I do not think Kevin Durant wants to go through a whole nother saga of going to another team, trying to win, having all the media pressure on him. Obviously, like Kyrie, Kevin Durant hates the media. And I think he just wants to stay where he's at and finish his career off with as little controversy as possible.
Yeah, I kind of thought he was gone for sure, but then the rumor came out that like he may not be leaving at all, and that's kind of led me to believe the same thing. I think KD is at a point in his career where he doesn't really care anymore. Like he's kind of done all there is to do. He's got a big old contract. I do think I don't want to say cruise to the end of his career because it's possible that they put together another playoff run. Obviously, it's easy to forget that Ben Simmons is in fact on the Nets roster. And I would say we'll probably play next year. I don't know. You would expect him to, but it's Ben Simmons. I as well think KD is going to be staying in Brooklyn until he eventually hangs up the shoes and gets his gold jacket.
Yeah. Ethan?
I think there's a huge possibility that he may stay just because of the Nets are gonna want basically one team's future.
Oh yeah.
Like the Nets are gonna want KD, they're gonna want a haul.
Oh, of course.
But if there was a team that I would like to see KD on, and this is just me as a fan,
here we go.
I would love to see him on the Timberwolves.
Oh, ooh! I was not expecting that. Wow.
On the Timberwolves. That's who I would like to see him on. I know they're having some issues with D'Angelo Russell and all that. The Nets loved D'Lo whenever he was there. I think D'Lo, maybe some young players, not Anthony Edwards or Cat, and then just basically your 3 first-round picks.
More like 5.
They did get a couple of young players in the draft.
That's what I mean. Like
22 and 29.
They might be able to put a package together.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like I would like to see him on the Trailblazers. The Timberwolves. Sorry. Timberwolves.
Another TT.
Sorry. Yes.
That's a good one. That's
good. I was already expecting to go on a whole tirade about how impossible it would be for teams to guard both Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum. But I am glad that you did take that in a different direction, because
I haven't heard that yet.
It is unlikely the Celtics make a move for him. I don't want to make this podcast everything about the Celtics, although it seems that way.
It seems like the Timberwolves are really trying. Like they've put together a nice little.
I mean, they celebrated a championship this year after the playing game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I feel like they're really gonna try, and I think if Kevin Durant were to enter the market for the trade, I think the Timberwolves should try their best to put whatever they can together, because they know with Cat, Anthony Edwards, and then KD, that is a 3. That would.
I like that idea. My only question is, how willing is Kevin Durant to live in Minnesota? Because it is cold up there.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know how he has ashy skin. It would not go well for him.
New York. As someone
Durant
that lived
could probably
in the
buy
North
like a quarter of the state of Minnesota, to be honest.
You could probably buy the franchise. They could call it the Minnesota Kevin Durant's.
That'd be nice.
But that's my idea.
Well, thank you for once again joining us here on the CBT podcast. I'm gonna say, please drop a like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Where do you think Kevin Durant's going? Where do you think Kyrie's going? What's gonna happen next year? I don't care what you write. Just write something. We'll let you know what we think. Rod, Ethan, thank you for once again coming back on the CBT podcast. We will see you guys post free agency. We will be gone for a little while, unavailable to record, but July 2nd, July 3rd, somewhere in there, we should have episode 6 coming out with our initial reactions to the early stages of free agency. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support, and we will see you guys later.